that has been Trump's thing, is he loves to live rent-free in the heads of his enemies, and so do I, by the way. Jesus, nobody lived rent-free in the heads of their enemies more than Jesus. He drove the Pharisees and the scribes crazy with his approach to life and religion and philosophy. And I think that living rent-free in the heads of your enemies is absolutely the best way to live. And I do, and I know that Trump does, and I think he has instructed his cabinet members, look, when these people criticize you, when they troll you, when they slander you, say false things about you, meme them until they cry, and then meme them crying. And that's what they're doing. They're like, they don't take these people seriously.
Hey, Danielle Walker here. I'd love for you to check out my online boutique, Lux Lion. My mission for Lux Lion is to showcase innovative African designers and sustainable mission-driven brands. To do that, I bring you stunningly beautiful handcrafted jewelry and accessories from some of my absolute favorite places on earth. Small batch wholesale for storefronts is also available. Join me in celebrating African artistry and shop now at luxlion.us. Use promo code FREEDOM for an additional 10% off your purchase. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to For the Love of Freedom. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd. It's 10 a.m. Central, and I'm coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Wherever you're watching or listening, please like it, share it, leave your comments. I couldn't do this without you, and I want to know your thoughts. Well, I'm your host, Danielle Walker, and on this show, we meet people who have rejected the status quo, who have broken with convention, have broken with the belief that the TV tells them the truth, and each of my guests in their own way are working to bring freedom to the world. I am so pleased, so let me bring my guest forward. Here he is. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Danielle. Thank you for having me back on your show. I had a great time in our last interview. And if you have not seen our first interview, you got to go and check it out. Lots of good conversation there on some interesting topics. So looking forward to continuing today.
Well, thank you so much. I have so been looking forward to this because that first conversation was it was very fun. It was so insightful, and it was really a gift. And so many people have commented on it and just said how much they really enjoyed it, which was just awesome.
Yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback from longtime listeners, including my wife, who said, I listened to that interview and I learned things about you I didn't know. She never talked about.
That is amazing. Well, that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I have been really looking forward to this because there's so much going on in the world that you have been talking about for a long time. And so I think it's going to be really interesting and we're going to have a lot of fun. But before we get started with the scripture of the day, Dave, if you wouldn't mind, I know that you and Denise just put out a book on marriage. Do you want to go ahead and plug your book?
Sure.
Yay.
We have a new book called Wisdom for Marriage Made Simple. It is a subject that Denise and I have been interested in for many years. We haven't talked about it a lot on social media. I haven't done a lot of videos on this subject. I have received a lot of prayer requests from people over the years whose marriages have been in trouble, and I've recommended resources to them. And I thought, you know what, we need to put together our own resource for people who are struggling with marriage and dating and relationships. So Wisdom for Marriage Made Simple is our latest book. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Apple Books and all the ebook outlets. It is 38 chapters, short. You know, my This is something that I don't talk about a lot, but when I started blogging years ago, and I'd write stories and testimonies and articles teaching on healing and different subjects, I found that the 1,000 word essay was my mojo. Like the magic was just in a 1,000 word essay. I felt like I could encapsulate most of what I wanted to say in about 1,000 words. So when I started on my blog, I would be writing an article or a testimony or something, and I'd be looking at the word count. When it got to around 900, 950 words, I was like, "Yep, I'm getting to that point where I feel good." So this book, interestingly enough, the chapters average about 950 words per chapter, and people are like, "Okay, well, what the heck does that? Why does that? Why is it relevant?" Um, the approach in this book is to provide information based on the experiences that Denise and I've had. We've both been divorced. We've both had all kinds of relationship problems. We have we're both lifelong learners, so we have read a lot of resources, listened to a lot of messages, studied intensely on the subject of marriage and dating and companionship and what all that means. And we've taken all that information and put it into about 38 essays that are about 1,000 words each that you can read each one in about 5 or 10 minutes. And whether you're single and hoping to get married, or maybe a newlywed, or you're engaged, or you've been married for a long time, maybe 20, 30 years, and your marriage isn't quite what you want it to be, you think it can be better, this book can help you. We have a lot of tips to help people grow in intimacy, grow in trust, learn how to hear God as a couple, how to respond to prophetic revelation as a couple, how to get together on the same page regarding finances and extracurricular, recreational activities. There's a lot of information in here that can help people, like I said, whether you've been married for decades or you're a newlywed or you're just dating. We have dating advice in here that is helpful. Things to consider when you're not yet married uh, that can help you uh, have a successful marriage, but also have a much better dating experience. So anyway, there you go. That's the plug for the book. We've already got a lot of feedback on it, and people really are enjoying um, the simple approach that we have to relationships.
Awesome, beautiful. Well, I will have to pick that one up. I haven't yet, but I just do really appreciate the way that your writings are not about fluff and it's not about catchphrases. It's about distilling truth and giving people simple, actionable things that they can do.
Well,
Um,
you have a good point there, because a lot of, especially in the Christian world, a lot of advice on marriage comes down to people just dispensing platitudes. Here's
yeah.
some scripture verses. Here's some well-worn platitudes that everybody regurgitates all the time about marriage. Um, I don't think that's that approach is very helpful. I think you need to dig into the real issues that cause relationship problems, whether it's emotional trauma, which there's plenty of information on how emotional trauma causes relationship conflicts and how to get healed of emotional trauma. Um, and then things like generational issues, how to bring a blended family together. If you're getting married and both of you have kids from previous marriages, how does that work? What's that dynamic like? We've done that. And so we have practical advice from our own personal experiences. This is what works. This is what doesn't work. And yeah, we try to make it very practical. Uh, and like I said, we've got some good feedback already from the readers who've checked it out.
Yeah. Well, I definitely recommend everyone get it. And I need to get it. I'm not married, so I need to get it from the single perspective. And then I'm sure plenty of people will benefit from it regardless of the stage they're in. So thank y'all for bringing that book.
Absolutely.
I think it's much needed. And that, I think it segues nice to our scripture of the day. It's Psalm 112, verses 6 through 10. And it says, their circumstances will never shake them, and others will never forget their example. They will not live in fear or dread of what may come, for their hearts are firm, ever secure in their faith. Steady and strong, they will not be afraid, but will calmly face their every foe until they all go down in defeat. Never stingy and always generous to those in need, their lives of influence and honor will never be forgotten, for they were full of good deeds. But the wicked take one look at a life lived like this and they grit their teeth in anger, not understanding their bliss. The wicked slink away speechless in the darkness that falls, where hope dies and all their dreams fade away to nothing, nothing at all. And Dave, I brought that scripture this morning. The context for the whole passage is generosity, and I think there's generosity of finances that we talk about a lot, and that's kind of the thing that comes to mind. But I think it's so important because you have been so generous with your insights, with your time, with your wisdom. I mean, the way that you and Denise have shared with your books, the way that you have written so many pieces, so many blogs, countless social media articles helping to guide people to truth. That is a very generous spirit, and I also love that it points out that the wicked are gnashing their teeth because they can't understand how someone would want to live a life like that.
All right. Well, I don't know what to say to that, but I think you're right. Um, when we were off camera, I was telling you the kind of harassment I get from wicked people who don't appreciate, don't understand exactly how I'm wired and what makes me want to do the stuff that I do. So it's a pretty good kind of a real life illustration of the problem. And I don't want to talk about this publicly because those people, I don't want them to know um, what what they're doing uh, affects me negatively. I don't want uh, I don't let them live in my head rent free. That's the thing. Talking about the wicked and the generous and people who, um, it's I don't take a whole lot of credit for this. When Denise and I were looking into the type of things that make relationships work, we stumbled upon a psychologist named David Kersey. And David Kersey is most well known for his personality type, personality traits. He's got a kind of it's a Myers Briggs based personality assessment, and
Okay.
it gives you kind of an idea of what makes you tick as a person. And I don't normally go in for formulas, but when I read Kersey's and started reading his books and looking at his information, and
Is his book Please Understand Me?
please
Something
understand me,
like that?
and please
Yeah.
understand me too. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with it?
Yeah, I took it in graduate school, I believe.
Okay, well,
I took it a couple times.
yeah. So my stepson actually got into that. He followed Kersey, read all of his information. He got us turned on to it. And what I found out is that my personality type, according to Kersey, is the guardian provider. The guardian provider, um, they are that personality type thrives on providing for other people. Right. So when you talk about generosity, I can't help but want to do things to help other people. That's just how I'm wired. If I'm not doing something to provide a service to other people, I feel pretty miserable. So, and not everybody is wired that way. There are
Yeah.
people like my wife, who is her personality type is the artisan um, crafter, I think. And
Okay.
the artisan personality, and this one in particular, is an introvert. First of all, I'm an extrovert. She's an introvert. And the artisans tend to be entrepreneurial. They tend to be creative. They come up with brainy ideas all the time. and they're very interested in the process of creation. So my wife she's a painter, and she is fascinated with tools, different kinds of brayers and scrapers and palette knives and brushes, and oh, I got this thing that can make this texture on this canvas. She's These people are wired to take creativity to the next level, and they're just all about the process of creation. They're wired that way. My wife is not a guardian provider. She's not wired to provide for other people. I am. That's just my
Yeah.
personality type. So, like I said, I don't take a lot of credit for providing, information, books, blogs, videos, things like that. That's just how God wired me. And and like I said, if I'm not doing that, I'm very frustrated. Denise is kind of the same way. If Denise is not involved in some kind of creative process, she just gets in a funk where she's not a happy person. And when gets over there and starts creating, whether it's, a book cover or a painting, she's in her happy place, and she can express the person that God made her to be. So, I don't know if that was in your script, but a little
No,
segue.
I love it, and it makes me wanna go back and remind myself of what the test said I was, because I think I think you're making such a great point that if we're not operating in purpose, we live in frustration,
Right.
and there are moments when we have inexplicable frustration. There's nothing in our circumstances that's any different from the day before to justify the frustration. It's just a dissatisfaction. And sometimes that means we need to be doing something new, but sometimes it just means we're not doing what we're supposed to be
Right.
doing.
Right.
And
Well,
I think being able to discern the difference is probably important as well.
a lot of people ask me, how do I know what is my divine destiny, my divine purpose? And the answer to that question is very closely tied to what makes you tick as a person, your passions. What do you love doing? What are you passionate about? The Bible says that God gives us the desires of our heart. And some people think, oh, God's going to give me everything I want. Well, there's another way to read that. The desires of your heart literally can be the things that you desire as a person,
Yeah.
or your passions, the things that you are believe in strongly, the things that make you tick. So the reason why taking a personality inventory, personality assessment like Kersey um, does, it helps you understand the things, it kind of encapsulates values, motives, what motivates you, the things you value. Myself as a guardian personality type, we tend to value traditions. We tend to value law and order. Guardians are people who their interest is in keeping society running smoothly. We don't like sudden change. We don't like catastrophe. We don't like chaos. We like things orderly. We respect traditions and history, and as in a generalized sense. And so that's when I think about that personality type, that actually matches up pretty well with me. Although there are exceptions. Um, Even though I have a great respect for the rule of law, oral traditions, written traditions, and history. I'm a bit of I wouldn't say I'm a iconoclast, but I I tend to push back against traditions and um, sources of information that are either destructive or no longer serve a purpose. So the
Mm,
mainstream media is a good example. Mainstream media, many people have this appeal to authority. This congressman said this news source said that. These are supposedly authoritative figures in society, and people will make an argument and they'll appeal to these authority figures. And I think that a lot of these authority figures don't have a legitimate authority at all. We
amen.
know that much of the mainstream media complex, whether it's the news stations themselves, producers, on-air personalities, they are part of a psychological operation by the deep state that has a purpose of controlling people's minds
Mm.
and enslaving us. So, so I push back against their narratives. I question their storylines, especially when they quote anonymous sources. Um, right. So even though my personality type, the Guardian, tends to highly value societal structures, critical thinking gives you the ability to look at those societal structures and say, well, this is worth keeping and that one is not worth keeping. We should just ignore that one. It's important to make those distinctions.
Yeah, it is. Well, when I titled this, episode, I thought we would be talking about a couple things that would be a lot of fun. I called it "The Markets, the Middle East, and Mexican Memes." So, that gives you a sense, just a little flavor for where I thought we might go.
Okay,
But I know that you follow precious metals pretty closely,
I do.
and gold and silver have been on a run. I mean, the markets have been wobbling the last couple of
Until two
days.
days ago.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
they have been.
when you when you look at that in the context of national politics and geopolitics, what is it telling you? And where do you think the market's heading?
Oh gosh, I think that the increase in the uh, in the spot price of gold and silver, they're indicators of a couple of things. First of all, um, central banks around the world have been stockpiling gold for many years. If you didn't know that, you know it now. And so there's this question: why have central banks around the world been stockpiling and hoarding gold? But we're talking hundreds of tons of gold. They've been doing it for years. And some people think because they know that some event is coming in the future that is going to cause some kind of a crisis in the capital markets, and they're going to need gold um, as a reserve for whatever's coming after that crisis event. Whether that's you know nations like China and Japan and the United States defaulting on the debt, we don't know, but the central banks are had been hoarding gold for a long time, and so um, the the price of gold and the price of silver have been manipulated for many years, mostly manipulated by the banking large banks and institutions. They've been able to artificially suppress the price of silver and gold for decades. In the summer of 2024, about a year ago, it looks like the banking system lost control of the price of gold. Zero Hedge published an article looking at how the dollar and the price of gold had always sort of tracked together, and suddenly there was a separation, and
Hmm.
the dollar decoupled from gold, and gold just started going higher, and it decoupled from all other financial instruments. For some reason, all these instruments that tracked the price of gold closely suddenly decoupled, and gold started going up, and everything else went down. And they argued that that was a time when gold literally was no longer being manipulated by banking and financial institutions. So that was a data point that I looked at, and I was like, okay, because gold and silver about a year ago they just started taking off in price.
Yeah.
God has given me many dreams over the last 15 years about silver and gold and them increasing in value dramatically. So when people ask me, hey, I've got this IRA, what should I invest in? I'm like, well, I am not a qualified financial advisor. I can't give financial advice. What I can tell people is God has given me dreams about gold and silver going up. And so I have told people, I think silver and gold are good investments. Um,
Great.
so what what is happening with them? Silver. A similar thing is happening with silver, although for different reasons. Silver um, is both an investment um, substance, metal. A lot of people have been buying silver, whether it's bars or silver rounds or silver coins, as a preparedness measure, because the theory is, and it's not just a theory, it actually works. If there's ever an economic collapse where, um, for whatever reason, whether the internet goes down and the banking system goes offline and people can't get access to their money, what happens shortly after any economic collapse, and you can look at historical um, cases like Argentina 25 years ago, late 90s, early 2000s, Argentina suffered a massive economic collapse. Their currency went to nothing. And it
Yeah.
was like the Weimar Republic of Germany about a century ago. The currency went to nothing. Hyperinflation set in. Everything became very expensive. And the currency du jour became gold and silver. If you had any bits of silver or gold, you could go to the markets and buy things. So from a preparedness standpoint, a lot of people, uh, I would say, acquire small bits of silver or gold as a hedge against hyperinflation in the event that, like I said, catastrophic collapse of the financial system, or just a massive increase in inflation. If prices suddenly start going higher, gold and silver will almost always outpace inflation, and they're certainly doing that over the last year. So, silver is a highly valued commodity among the prepper community, but it's also seen a large increase in its utilization in industry, solar
Yeah.
panels, cell phones, electronic devices. Most of the electronic devices, whether it's flat screen TVs or tablets, phones, and solar panels and other, uh,
Even chips, I think.
yeah, a lot of modern devices use silver in their production. And so places like China and India, they do a lot of production of these devices. They need silver. They need physical silver. So they've been buying silver like crazy, and that's been increasing the price of the spot price of silver. And what happened in October 3rd ish was there was what's called a backwardation of the price of silver. Normally, the future price of silver is higher than the daily spot price. Um, and what happened was they inverted, and the daily spot price became higher than the future price on in London on the LBMA because they ran out of physical silver. LBMA just had, for whatever reason, they ran out of physical silver, and when they began paying a price, a spot price for silver that was higher than the future price, people in the US who had large stores of silver began loading their silver onto cargo planes and flying it to London and selling it to get the higher spot price.
Wow.
There was a liquidity crisis in the silver market for the first 2 weeks of October. That that didn't cause the price of silver to go up 85% in the last year. That caused a little bit of a panic in the silver market over the last 2 weeks. So now, in the last 2 days, silver has dropped, I think, 9 or 10%. Gold has dropped about 9 or 10% just since Friday. And people are wondering, like, okay, what the heck is going on? Is it all going down? Is it going to keep going up? I think this is a natural uh, thing to be expected. Silver reached its highest point ever. The previous high was the previous closing high in silver, I think, was around $51, 52 intraday. When it got up to 53, all-time high, levers in the financial markets started to move. And then at that point, it's anyone's game. It's anyone's guess what is going to happen. But people started making financial moves when silver went into record high territory. And I think it's going to take a couple of weeks for us to figure out what's going to happen. I expect that the price of silver will stabilize. There's going to be, I think, some consolidation, and silver will probably channel between 40. It could go down as low as 46, 45. It could go lower than that. I don't know. But I think
Yeah.
between 45 and 55, you'll see the price of silver stay in that range for a while before it heads higher again. I suspect that once the panic in the market is gone, people have sold and bought whatever they're going to sell or buy. I think the price will move higher. Same for gold. I think that there's a little bit of turmoil in the markets. People don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, gold is so high. Like, do we buy it? Do we sell what we've got? It's
Right.
so valuable. Do we buy more? I think there's an expected amount of turmoil in the markets on both silver and gold. Platinum too. Platinum has
Yeah.
been tracking along with silver at the same rate, although a lot fewer people buy platinum as opposed to silver and gold. So it's been interesting tracking it. I track them every day. I suspect they're going to go a lot higher, but I don't know. God hasn't given me any revelation lately on silver and gold that I'm aware of. So
Okay. Well, we'll stay tuned. What do you make of a couple of years ago? Uh, Dr. Jan Halper Hayes talked about all these planes flying plane loads of gold bars out of the Vatican. What do you make of that?
nothing.
Yeah.
um, I don't consider Jan Halper Hayes to be a reliable source of information.
Okay.
I have seen some of her interviews, and she has put out some just absolutely untrue hopium type stuff, and I don't take her seriously. Um, I know there's a lot of people on social media that follow her and listen to her. I
Yeah.
don't think there's any her personality aside, her agenda aside. Um, I don't think that there's any evidence to suggest that massive amounts of gold were moved out of the Vatican. Uh, we would know about it, and it would be sourced from other sources other than internet rumors. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
put a whole lot of stock in that.
What about Fort Knox?
What about Fort Knox? Elon and Trump were going to go audit Fort Knox, and
Right?
Elon was talking about live streaming it. I was like, that was what, March, in the spring of this year, and then suddenly it went away, and no more talk about that. I don't know. I'm still curious to know what the heck is in Fort Knox. Do we have a
Yeah.
lot of gold there, or do we not? Um,
Yeah. Do we have a lot of bricks that are spray painted gold? There was a lot of memes flying around about that.
I don't know. I would like to see Trump address that, or Scott Bessent or someone in the
Yeah.
administration tell us, hey, what's up with Fort Knox? You guys said you were going to go audit. Like, promises made, promises kept. That stuff. Let's keep the promise and let's
Uh-huh.
get Fort Knox audited because we want to know. I haven't heard anything recently.
Yeah. Okay, and Q, bringing it back to Q.
Yes, ma'am.
Q said that gold would end the Fed. What does that mean, and what do you think that will look like?
All right. Oh, gosh. All right. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here. So, one of the Anons on the board asked Q, uh, do we have the gold? And Q said, yes, gold shall destroy the Fed. Right. So, um, President Trump is doing some interesting things with his cabinet. He has, for example, he's made Sean Duffy, who is the Secretary of Transportation, he has made him also the administrator of NASA. Two different government agencies. One guy is working both of them.
Hmm.
He's got Marco Rubio as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. He's got Kash Patel running FBI, but Kash is also running ATF, right? So he's got a lot of his people doing dual roles. Scott Bessent has several roles. And I think that what Trump's plan probably is to defang the Federal Reserve in a slow and gradual way that people aren't even going to know what's actually happening. And here's my theory. All right. So it's not my theory. It is somebody else's theory.
But you ascribe to it.
I think it's an interesting theory. So I'm going to pull up Telegram here,
Sure.
and I am going to go back and kind of just read what this one guy said
And you can
about.
share, I think, on your side if you want to.
Um, right. Let me see if I can do this. I got to find it. Let's see. Bank stocks. It's all right. Right. Can't find it, but I'll tell you. This is what a guy has said that I think is worth considering. And I'm gonna butcher this explanation, but
Okay.
essentially, the explanation was that if gold rises to $10,000 per ounce as a price, it would be possible for the for the federal government to take its debt and revalue it in terms of gold, and in a sense, um, eradicate much of our debt by by tying it to gold. It's not putting us on a gold standard. It is revaluing our existing debt in terms of gold and potentially the gold assets that we have on hand. The theory is that the Trump administration is doing something intentionally to increase the price of gold to a point where we can then revalue our own debt in terms of gold and essentially kind of swap it and um, and transfer the debt over to our gold holdings. Um, that's that's the best that I can do on the explanation. I think it's an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true, but
It makes sense because I've heard Trump talk about the fact that having a weak dollar is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not something that people at home like
right,
to be real. And so I think that if they are doing a lot through tariffs to keep the dollar devalued or the value of the dollar low, then a high gold price, you would think that you would go in at a fraction of what the dollar would go into gold is at a fraction of what it would otherwise be. If that makes sense.
yeah, I think so. You look at Bitcoin, for example. The Trump administration would have zero interest in Bitcoin if it had been increasing in value for many years to the point now. I think it's around
111 was yesterday,
116,
something like that.
116,000, something like that, for Bitcoin. It's it's an asset that has a high value, and therefore the Trump administration has said, okay, this is an asset of value. We're going to go in on this. If gold becomes an asset of great value, they're gonna want to get a piece of that action. And how you do that is, um, let's see, uh, yeah, I'm not an economist,
Me either.
and
Me
I'm not a
either.
market person, but if gold rises to the price of, like I said, 10,000, 12,000, $15,000 per ounce, that would be at a point where the administration would seize the opportunity to revalue its you know our debt and our assets in gold rather than fiat money. Would that would that be equivalent to putting us on the gold standard? I don't think so. Although someone there's another Zero Hedge article that came out, and it's actually on Seeking Alpha. It's an investing website. Um, this person who wrote this article noted that, uh, first of all, gold is by far the leading asset class in the world. You'd have to have 7 times more people hold Nvidia stock to equal the assets that are invested in gold right now. Gold is I think a $30 trillion asset class right now, compared to Nvidia, which is about a $5 trillion asset class. So there is by far more money invested in gold than any other asset in the world right now, and it's only increasing as the price of gold goes up. The amount of value money invested in gold continues to go up. And so what what this art writer pointed out is that right now there's a 30% of US dollar assets are in gold right now. Well, let me put it this way. 30% uh, of assets are invested in gold. 30% are invested in dollars, and 35% are invested in other things. There's going to come a point when there's going to be more money invested in gold than in dollars. That is going to. Oh, wait a minute. No, hang on. It's 40% in dollars. 30% of foreign. I think this is foreign investments are invested in dollars. 40% are invested. 30% in gold. 40% in dollars. And these two are approaching each other. So the amount of money invested in dollars is decreasing. The amount of money invested in gold is increasing. They're going to cross over at around 36%. When money invested in gold exceeds money invested in dollars, and that is projected to happen when gold reaches $5,700 an ounce. So the
Okay.
projection is right now, if there is no one buys more gold than they have right now, if they just hang on to the gold they've got, when the price of gold reaches $5,700, there will be more money invested in gold than in dollars worldwide.
Okay.
At that point, gold becomes not the world's reserve currency, it becomes a world's reserve asset. And so the increasing price of gold, I think, is going to have big impact, big consequences. And I know that Scott Bessent and the guys that are working with Trump, they're smart people and they see what's happening with gold. I think there's going to come a time where they're going to use the quickly increasing price of gold to I don't think Trump wants to devalue the dollar. He wants the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency. But if they can peg the dollar to gold and if
Yeah.
they can revalue our debt in terms of gold, I think that will go a long way toward helping our financial future. And I suspect that's kind of what they're looking at. Again, I'm not an economist. I'm not a big investor, but I follow these people, and some of these people has some interesting ideas about it.
As you were talking, one thing that came to mind is that, people like Scott Bessent, people like Elon that were involved in the administration early on, and even Trump himself. You look at the vast amount of real estate that the US government owns. I wonder how that fits into the balance sheet that as they're looking at all this. And I don't have any the idea is outstripping my ability to intelligently speak about it, but it does just make you wonder how they're valuing, um, the
All right.
US
So,
assets.
so why did Trump create a sovereign wealth fund for the United
I would
States?
hope.
It's to add value to our balance sheet. Uh, he is doing things, innovative things that no other president has ever done. They do it in other countries.
Yeah,
Other countries have sovereign wealth fund. They take their oil reserves and they use them as a sovereign wealth fund as a way to back their own bottom line, their balance sheet. Trump is doing that. He has gotten CEOs of big corporations like Intel to give
yeah,
the U.S. government 10% of their shares. Intel was having a lot of problems. They haven't been very competitive in the last 5 years. They've fallen behind. And they came to Trump and asked for some help. And he said, well, yeah, we'll help you. We also want, we'd also like some stake in your company. And the CEO was like, how about 10%? So Trump's like, that was that deal. I forget what it was valued at when he first made the deal, but it's massively increased in value just in the last month as the stock price of Intel has skyrocketed. So he's adding value to our balance sheet. And he's done this with other companies. He's gotten other CEOs to give the US government a portion of their shares. And people are like, oh, that's not how we are. We're Americans. That's communism. That's fascism, where the government controls the industry. Well, the government isn't controlling the industry. Um, Trump is simply getting some value from private industry in exchange for the services that the government is providing for these companies that are manufacturing. So, so Trump is doing some interesting things, adding value to our balance sheet. Is that a way that he's going to deal with our debt? Potentially, I don't know what the end game is, but he's just doing some very creative things that got to make you wonder, like, what is the end game?
I hope it's
What's
to
his
end the
plan?
IRS.
What's that?
I hope it's to also end the IRS. If you
Well,
can if there's enough generation, yeah,
he's openly talked about getting rid of the federal income tax, getting rid of the IRS, and creating the External Revenue Service,
yeah,
where our revenue comes from other countries. Sorry, you're going to support us. If you're going to do business in our country, it's going to cost you, and it's going to benefit our citizens who are no longer taxpayers; they're tax receivers. Uh, I think
that's awesome.
if he can pull this off in his next 3 years, and if we get JD Vance or someone comes in on the heels and gets 8 years, they can do so much to change the way in which government runs. Um, you know, Maybe arrest half of the members of Congress and get them out and put in some new members of Congress.
Yeah, or more.
Um, we need a big turnover in Congress and some new rules of operating. Uh, this country could turn around big time, and we could
Yeah.
we could be living in that golden era that Trump talks about.
Yeah. I'm just so hopeful about all of that, and I'm keeping my eyes open as we look at the news to kind of help, just to understand what's going on. The moves that he's making, what do they mean? And that's, I think, it's just a lot of fun to watch.
It is indeed.
Let's switch gears and talk about Middle East peace.
Okay.
So we finally saw the release of the October 7th hostages. I think it was last week. Time is getting a little wonky.
Yep.
The deal was signed in Egypt. We've seen what appears to be some violations and answers to violations of the ceasefire arrangement between Israel and Hamas. VP Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner went to Israel this week. Rubio, it was announced, is slated to be there tomorrow. What do you make of what we've seen?
I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I'm
Yeah,
glad that Trump has two people like Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner who can go into the Middle East, use their experience, and finally get some peace in the region. I'm really encouraged by what I see. I mean, yeah, you're dealing with terrorists, and terrorists are going to be terrorists, and they're not always going to uh,
yeah,
abide by their agreements. I think there's going to be some violence that's to be expected, but I think it's just amazing what President Trump's people have done. Both Marco Rubio and the people at the State Department, and Witkoff and Kushner and the other people involved in the negotiations. It really illustrates the idea that the State Department is no longer operating by the old rules of engagement,
yeah,
which has for many years been create turmoil, create unrest, create regional wars that fuel the military industrial complex, regime change, all of that stuff. Um, I think it's very encouraging that our State Department is actually highly motivated in the area of diplomatic relations to end these forever wars in the Middle East. I'm really optimistic that I think things are going to go well.
and if I remember right, Dave, after or during Trump's first administration, did Obama go around right behind Trump and, like, try and literally undercut everything he did?
Yes, he
Do
did.
you think do you think that this, the number of peace deals happening proves that Obama has been brought to heel in some way?
I don't know that if Obama has been brought to heel, but early on in the first year of the first Trump administration, Obama and John Kerry and a few other of those types were going around to their friends in the Middle East and in other countries and in Europe, the globalists, talking to Macron and uh, Angela Merkel, telling them, we're going to get Trump out of office. Don't change your policies. Don't change anything. Just wait. He's just a blip on the radar. We're going to get rid of him. We'll go back to the old globalist, New World Order
Yeah,
plan. They were actively undermining Trump in those first couple of years. And they thought through the Russia hoax and the Mueller witch hunt and everything else that they were going to get rid of Trump. And of course, they didn't realize that, Teflon Don is a much tougher character to get rid of. So this time around, I think those world leaders that realize, yeah, we're not getting rid of Trump. He's here to stay, and we have to
yeah.
deal with him now. We have to recognize that he is the leader of the most powerful nation on earth, and we can't get rid of him. We can't, run around him. We can't ignore him. He's a force of nature that has to be dealt with. And so, yeah, and the thing is, he's got his people, unlike Gina Haspel and Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence and all these other people who are
Yeah.
really beholden to the deep state. He's got a totally new crew of people who are willing to represent him and his agenda and his policies. And, he's got good people they're on board with his program and they're making
Yeah.
it happen. Um, and that involves everything. We can talk about Venezuela too, what's going on in Venezuela and Colombia with the drug cartels. There's a lot more involved in that than meets the eye, I think. I suspect that if you're not aware, Trump has been running a Monroe Doctrine 2.0, where he's trying to get our military disengaged from wars all around the world, and he's trying to focus on the Western Hemisphere and get things straightened out in our part of the world, um, and cut the influence operations that Russia and China have had in in our hemisphere. I think what's happening down in Venezuela and Colombia is more about getting them to decouple from China and Russia and bring them more under our influence and less under the influence of our adversaries. You know, People see the Trump blowing up these boats, these drug running boats. There's a lot more to it than that. I think Trump is trying to bring some type of order to that part of the world that has kind of been chaotic. Uh,
Yeah.
Panama, Venezuela, Colombia, that whole region has been unstable. It has massive resources. It has rare earth. It's got oil.
Yeah.
It's got good ports on the Pacific and the Atlantic. It's a key strategic area. And I think Trump has very big plans to, like I said, decouple those countries from Russia and China and their influence operations and bring them more into alignment with Western nations.
What do you make of Emerald Robinson's statements a couple weeks back that the blowing up of these narco boats is less about the drugs and more about the fact that Venezuela's been in control of our elections? Do you think there's anything to that?
No, I doubt it. I mean,
Yeah.
we know that the DOJ is investigating our elections across the entire country from 2018 to 2024. DOJ is investigating all the election rigging that's been going on. I don't know that Venezuela is the key. I mean, yeah, I understand that the voting machine companies, they're kind of got their start there, but I don't think that's the bigger motive for this. I think
Okay.
there are much bigger geopolitical issues that are involved, involving things like oil and rare earth elements and industrial capacity and shipping lanes and all of that.
Okay. Going back to Israel for a minute, what do you make of the sharp division that's arisen in the truth community or on the right or whatever you call it? You see people like Candace Owens and Tucker and many other, less name figures who seem to have taken a pretty anti-Israel stance. To me, it seems like people who can easily see that there's a deep state in the US somehow have a blind spot perhaps when it comes to Israel, that Israel may have a blind spot, might have a deep state as well. What's your take on kind of this strong divergent, like going into very anti-Semitic territory?
Gosh, open the can of worms. Here we go.
I told you we'd be having fun.
Yeah, yeah. I am. Um, I'm not happy with the direction that in which our community has gone with respect to Israel and the Middle East. I saw it when I first got on 4chan and 8chan, and I was following Q years ago. I saw a lot of anti-Israel sentiment, a lot of, and it comes in different flavors. There's in the Anon community, there's a massive amount of neo-Nazi ideology that is being spread in that community. There's
Wow.
also some ideology that I would say is not neo-Nazi, but it's definitely anti-Semitic. And then there is another group of people who are just anti-Israel. They don't have anything, at least overtly, against the Jewish people. They just don't trust the state of Israel because of Mossad, because they don't trust Bibi Netanyahu. There's just a lot of mistrust there. Um, to me, I'm just perplexed. I don't understand it at all. I don't get it. Um, Objectively, when I look at Israel, yeah, I mean, every country from Russia to China, United States, Israel has a deep state. They have intelligence agencies um, that may or may not have noble motives for what they do. So we all know that, like the CIA here in the United States, Mossad in Israel has influence operations that they're running. What what I don't understand is when you see President Trump from his first term in office all the way through today, calling Netanyahu a war hero, um, a a noble, heroic man who has been unfairly harassed and persecuted by his own parliament. Um, Trump has nothing but positive things to say about Netanyahu. And when you listen to people in our community, just absolutely hate Netanyahu, don't trust him, can't say anything good about him. Like the disconnect, I'm like, look, Trump has met Netanyahu, has known Netanyahu since the 90s.
Yeah.
And Trump seems to implicitly trust Bibi. I don't really understand why there's so much hatred for him in the MAGA community where people generally trust Trump's judgment, except on that, they don't. I don't get it. And
Yeah.
the other thing I don't get is, um, uh, if you look at the Middle East specifically, there's kind of two countries that have been vying for leadership and preeminence in the Middle East, and that's Saudi Arabia and Iran. So, Iran, when Trump came into office, he understood that if he could get the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and if he could get Saudi Arabia to take a more Western view of life and culture and civilization, and could align Saudi Arabia with our interests, he could get the entire Middle East to play nice with us, and maybe we could end all these damn, forever wars and cooperate and build a coalition. So he started doing that, and he got on the again using Jared Kushner. Uh, he sent Kushner to talk with Mohammed bin Salman. There was a corruption crackdown November 4th, 2018. Mohammed bin Salman arrested a whole bunch of members of the royal family who were plotting against him, who were involved in corruption. And Saudi has, for the last 7 or 8 years, has been a really strong strategic partner with the United States in working to bring them into kind of the modern era of Western culture. Trump has been working with them in this administration on AI infrastructure and building an industrial base, because they've pretty much always been on oil. That's their
Yeah.
primary source of income, and they know that they need to modernize and industrialize and move in different directions. So Trump's people are helping Saudi Arabia do that. When Trump got Saudi to work with him, that kind of brought along the Emiratis, UAE and Qatar and other countries, Jordan. Other countries became more allied and aligned with U.S. interests, which are not always good. But Trump's interest in the Middle East is not exploitation of the oil fields and causing wars. His interest is in ending the wars and getting economic cooperation among all these countries. And Israel has
Yeah.
been a key to that process. Getting the Abraham Accords signed, getting some countries in the Middle East to agree to diplomatic relations with Israel is a good thing. And Trump is hoping he can get Saudi Arabia to sign up on the Abraham Accords. He thinks that he will pretty soon. If Saudi Arabia signs up to the Abraham Accords, that brings a powerful alignment of countries in the Middle East into alignment with the US, and it isolates Iran. And we don't necessarily want to alienate Iran, but they have been the troublemaker in the Middle East for many years,
Yeah.
since the CIA came in and helped install the Islamic regime. Um, that it's been a problematic country for many years. Trump went in there and finally got rid of their nuclear, their ability to produce, highly enriched uranium, and set back their nuclear program. Um, it's I think Trump is hoping that, and here's where you know that I think Trump can be trusted. Trump is not about regime change. It would be very easy for Trump to tell the military, look, just take out Khomeini, take out all the heads of
Right.
Islamic Republic, and we'll just regime change. Trump isn't into that. He wants the Iranian people to do their own thing, have their own government, something that's hopefully wants peace with other countries in the Middle East and the West. Will that be Reza Pahlavi at some point? I hope so. He seems like a very reasonable guy. He's essentially the crown prince. He was the son of the Shah of Iran, who was deposed in 1979. But back to Israel. Israel is a key player in all of this. If Israel, Israel is the most Western of all the nations in the Middle East. They're a Western democracy. They have a parliamentary form of government. They don't have, like, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. They have
Kings.
kings. They don't have a parliamentary democratic form of government. You don't go and elect your leaders in those countries. In Israel, they
Right.
have elected leaders. They have a parliamentary government. So they're the most Western uh, looking, acting country in the Middle East. They're a strategic military partner. They're a strategic economic partner. They're a strategic technology partner. A lot of the military hardware and technology that we use in the US comes from Israel. Their
Yeah.
scientists, their scientists are pretty brilliant, actually. So I don't really, like I said, I don't understand this hostility toward Israel from people in our community, because it just, in many ways, Israel is a key strategic partner. And without them, we would have no foothold at all for working with countries in the Middle East to bring them into kind of a more Western way of living, which they want.
Yeah.
They don't want to be stuck in this ancient culture. I mean, it's been working for a while, but they realize they need to upgrade their operating system, and Trump is trying to do that. And I think Netanyahu is a key player in that. So, like I said, I don't get the hatred toward Israel really, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, same here. And I want to address something that's in the chat, because and you can touch on it if you want to, or we can just move on. But someone's talking about the fact that the Rothschilds created the state of Israel. Well, to me, if you are a Christian and you believe the Bible, the whole story of the Bible is about how God turns what was intended for evil for good with the people of Israel. So I don't really have a problem with the Genesis story of the modern state of
I don't think
Israel.
there's any evidence to support the assertion that the Rothschilds created Israel. I've heard the story about the Khazarian mafia
Yeah,
and all of that. Those are fine fairy tales, but I don't know that there's any historical evidence to support those ideas.
okay.
Just me.
And then last question on this topic. What did Q mean when he said save Israel for last?
All right, here we go. um, when that post was dropped on the board, I think it was in 2018. There was a discussion going on, and the discussion actually went in the direction of the Awan brothers, Imran Awan and his brother. Imran Awan is a Pakistani IT guy who actually set up for Hillary Clinton a proprietary network of BlackBerry cell phones in the Washington, D.C. area, where they were actually trying to um, get out from under the surveillance of the NSA. They thought they could set up a communication network that the NSA would not monitor. So Imran Awan set up this uh, infrastructure in DC for friends of Hillary Clinton. They all were given these BlackBerry phones that worked on a proprietary network. This is one of the things that Imran Awan did. He also um, provided IT services for the entire Democratic caucus in the House of Congress, and then exfiltrated their data and allegedly sold it on the Pakistani black market. So on the board, people were talking about all this corruption. And one guy said, what about Imran Awan? Is he involved? And in that same post where he asked about Imran Awan, he said, is Israel involved? And Q said, Israel has not been mentioned a single time for a very specific purpose. We are saving Israel for last. Okay. So the people who are anti-Israel took that as an indication that Israel is probably like the most corrupt nation and that we're saving the worst for last. That's been their take on this whole thing. I have a different take. When I read what Q has posted about Israel, Q has not cast Israel in a negative light. In fact, the only other mention of Israel in all of the posts to that in 2018 was about the time that Netanyahu held a live press conference. I think it was at the end of April or May of 2018. And he rolled out all this evidence of Iran's illegal nuclear weapons program. So Iran had, in violation of the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, they had been developing nuclear weapons at two sites, one in Syria and one in northern Iran. Under the radar, the International Atomic Energy Agency knew nothing about it. And Netanyahu brought out all this evidence in a live streamed press conference where he explained how Mossad had infiltrated these operations, exfiltrated all of this information and data about Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. That day, Q posted on the board, knowing what you now know regarding Netanyahu's press conference and Iran's covert nuclear weapons program, what does that tell you about the JCPOA, Obama's motives for all of that, making the deal with Iran for the nuclear weapons program? Q has always hinted that Iran's covert nuclear weapons program was a plan that Obama and John Kerry put in place to allow Iran to secretly develop nuclear weapons so that they could launch a nuclear war that would start World War III. And the interesting thing about this whole thing is this happened, this press conference that Netanyahu held, happened at the same time as a joint military exercise called Eager Lion. Eager Lion 2018 was happening in Jordan at that very same time. It was a joint military exercise with the United States and Jordan and other allies in the area. And they were doing live fire training. And so when we saw that, when Q posted this post, I was like, Eager Lion. One of the Anons was like, wait a minute. Eager Lion, are you serious? Eager Lion is an anagram for Iron Eagle. And Iron Eagle was a signature that Q began posting back in November of 2017, 5 months earlier. So E- Q has suggested that and Q has never posted anything negative about Israel. Q has echoed President Trump's view of Israel as a strategic ally in the Middle East, as a military ally, and Netanyahu as someone who is trying to prevent World War III by exposing the corruption and in Iran's secret nuclear weapons program. So, going back to saving Israel's for last, like I said earlier, on 4chan and 8chan, where Q is posting, there was tons and tons of neo-Nazi and anti-Semitic messaging going on those boards. It's been there for a long time. It's well known. The mainstream media has made note of the fact that Q posts on message boards that are known to be hangouts for neo-Nazis and anti-Semites. All right. Having that background, to me, it makes more sense to interpret Q's post as saving Israel for last, as an acknowledgement that, well, we have this problem with Israel, and that there's a lot of people on this board who hate Israel, hate the Jews, and we're just not going to talk about that stuff until way later because I don't want to be accused of being a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I think Q
Oh,
understood.
interesting.
I think Q understood because he was posting on a board. It was a known hangout for those types of people. Q did not want to be accused of being an anti-Semite or a neo-Nazi. So Q decided we're not going to talk about Israel. It's just not a talking thing. We're just going to do it later. We'll talk about all the other stuff that needs to go on. And at the end of the operation, maybe we'll talk about, Israel a little bit. It just so happens that when that post came, I think it was at the end of 2017 or early in 2018. And then a few months later in April, May of 2018, Q actually does mention Israel in a very positive light. Again, the whole point of Q's message then was the exposure of Iran's secret nuclear weapons program, which was a plan to launch World War III. So that's my thing about saving Israel for last is it was a way to avoid being smeared as a neo-Nazi or an anti-Semite.
Okay. All right. I like it. How are you doing on time? Because I have two other topics I was hoping to cover.
We're good. Keep going.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about President Trump.
Okay.
So there are some people who still talk about Trump admin 1.0 as if Trump was just some outsider coming into the presidency, not knowing who the players were. And now that he's been around that mountain one time, he's wiser and he's tired of the crap. And that's why he's being so effective. So that's kind of like one camp of people. And then
Yep.
there's this whole crowd who thinks that we're like the other end of the spectrum, right? That we're watching a very scripted movie. Everything's already happened. The people are already arrested, all of that kind of thing. And Trump knows everything that's going on. What's the reality in your view? How much do you think President Trump knows?
All right. That's a really good question. And I'm glad you're giving me an opportunity to address this. So, in my perspective, in my opinion, all right, I'm not saying this is fact. This is my opinion. There are several different mindsets within our community, different ways in which people view geopolitics. We'll just say that. And one of them is illustrated by an acquaintance of mine who shall be nameless, who, on his own admission, was terminally black-pilled during the second Obama administration. Okay. So actually, Denise and I were almost terminally black-pilled ourselves during the second Obama administration. We were seriously looking to potentially move to Central America. If
Wow.
Hillary got elected in 2016, Denise and I were thinking of becoming expats and leaving the country. We were just terrified of her taking the reins in control of this country because we knew we were headed for World War III if that happened.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of people who were terrified of 8 years of Obama and then 8 years of Hillary, it would have been the end of the world.
Yeah.
It would have been just the end of the world. So some people, because they got blackpilled during the Obama administration, and then Q comes along and Trump comes along, end of 2016 into 2017, they take this view like, oh my gosh, now the Patriots are like totally in control of like everything. And that was one of Q's messages: Patriots are in control. If you take that that message to its extreme, what that means is patriotic people are literally in control of all the stuff that's going on, right? That nothing bad is going to be allowed to happen geopolitically because patriots are controlling it all. They have the levers of control. They've taken it away from George Soros and the Rothschilds and everybody else, and it's all under the control of good people now. And literally, the deep state's been neutered. All the bad guys have already been executed at Gitmo. Every 3 or 4 months, the same people go down there to Gitmo to get executed because the Patriots are. That's the way they want it.
Yeah.
If you read real raw news, that's the kind of narrative that you get, which is kind of pretty much fiction. But this friend of mine has taken this view, and he and his friends have propagated this view that Comey and Clapper and Brennan and all these people they've been put into submission. They're really secretly working with Trump, and and or they've already been neutralized. No one is actually working against Trump like for real. It's all an act. It's a play. It's a movie. Don't you get it?
Right.
Trump didn't come into the DC swamp and find himself in a battle. He had a bunch of movie scripts and he handed out scripts to people and said, okay, you have to read these lines. We're doing a movie and here's your script. You have to read these lines. It's all pretend. We're just putting on a big show for everybody. These people literally believe that Trump wrote a movie script and gave the lines to people to read, and everybody is just an actor. That is not reality. That view of the world is not real. That is a made up view that does not comport with what we're seeing happen in
Yeah.
the real world. That's just not reality. Trump came into, in my view, in my opinion, which is worth exactly what you pay for it, which is nothing. In my opinion, Trump came into DC an outsider. He had never been a politician. He didn't know a lot of people in politics. I mean, he knew some names, but he didn't know. He didn't have those connections of being a DC insider for 20 years. So he was reliant upon his advisors to make recommendations to him about who he should put in his cabinet. So he got recommendations from people like Chris Christie and Paul Ryan and some other swamp dwellers who
Yeah.
filled his cabinet with people who we now know, well, they're not really the patriotic people that we thought they were. Now here's here's a couple of examples. Let me give you some examples. We were told to trust Chris Wray by Q, who said, trust Wray, right? And for a long time, I was willing to believe the best about Chris Wray because he fired a bunch of people. He fired a whole bunch of people at the top of the FBI. And I thought, okay, he's making some progress. He's getting rid of some people at the FBI. But then we find out that he was actually just a swamp dweller. When it came to January 6th and him allowing the FBI to do the things that they did, it became really clear and obvious that Wray was not working in the best interests of the American people. Jeff Sessions is another one. Q told us that Jeff Sessions was going to drop the hammer and he was going to make the arrest and everything. Sessions ended up being just a weak person who could not get the job done. We were told to trust Bill Barr. Bill Barr, another weak person, another swamp dweller who let us down and would not allow any significant arrests or investigations to happen. Mike Pompeo. We were told to trust Pompeo. Pompeo has proven himself to be a deep state critter who just wanted to advance the agenda of the intelligence community and the State Department and more wars. And Pompeo was totally on board with us, giving Ukraine everything they want to further that war. I was very disappointed when I saw Pompeo's true colors. Gina Haspel, same thing. Admiral Nakasone, General Nakasone. General Paul Nakasone, who took over at NSA, we were told by Q that we should trust Nakasone. He was a good guy. Nakasone ends up being the guy who allowed this profane, vile sex chat server on the NSA's website, where people were sending all these profane, vulgar messages back and forth about their sexual perversions. Nakasone kind of endorsed that.
Wow.
You go back, you can find Ezra Cohen, his tweets about
Mhm.
Nakasone. He said,
Yep.
no one has done more to destroy the national security interests of our country than Nakasone. I'm glad he's retiring. He was a total failure.
Yeah.
So all of these people that we were told in the first Trump administration that we should trust turned out to be people we probably should not trust. John Bolton, another good example. Q suggested that Bolton was going to come in and clean house and he was going to get rid of all these rats. And now
Uh,
Bolton has been indicted and is probably going to go to
yeah.
prison. Um,
Someone in the chat's asking about Flynn, so maybe while you're
Flynn's a good
addressing
guy.
people.
Flynn's a good
Yeah,
guy. I
I
trust
think so
Flynn.
too.
I have not seen anything from General Flynn give me any reason not to trust him and respect him. You know, I think he's a patriot. I think he can be trusted. There's reasons why he's not in the administration right now. I don't know what those reasons are, but he is very effective in his messaging and in recruiting digital soldiers to the war that we're fighting outside the administration. I think he's
Yeah.
a key leader in that battle. So all that is to say, when I look at what happened in Trump 1.0 and I look at what's happening in Trump 2.0, to me, it's very clear that Trump was surrounded by a bunch of people who were sympathetic to the deep state in his first administration. He had 4 years to figure that out and find people that he could work with in his second administration who would actually run his game plan. And they're just, it's just lights out right now. They're just hitting home runs. They're scoring at every single opportunity. They've all learned how to meme and how to troll. I mean,
They're having so much fun.
everyone from Brendan Carr, who's the head of the FCC chair, to
He
Sean
is so
Duffy,
good at it.
to JD Vance. They've all figured out the meme warfare. Kristi Noem is out there dropping memes and trolling her enemies. I mean, I really enjoy what the Trump 2.0 administration is doing. They have clearly figured out that if they follow Trump and his agenda, things are going to work out. And so, yeah, I don't think we're watching a movie. I think we Trump learned some hard lessons from 1.0, and he's determined to make a better go of it this time around.
Yeah. Okay. You brought up memes. That's kind of where I wanted to round things out here, and they have just been so epic. The Trump 2.0, they have been so forward, so irreverent, so unapologetically in your face, amazing with the memes. I mean, the Trump in the fighter jet dumping poop all over
Harry
Harry
Sisson,
Sisson,
it's great.
so great. So great. And the sombreros. I mean, the sombreros alone had the left like pearl clutching and like melting down for an entire week of a news cycle. That's just I wanna know, like, 1, what is that distracting them from? Because it's hysterical.
Well, I think what has happened is Trump, Dan Scavino, probably Devin Nunes, and a few other people that are close to President Trump. They have had some meetings with the cabinet secretaries and other people in the administration, and they have instructed their team with these instructions. Do not respect these people in the mainstream media. They are liars. They're traitors. They betrayed the country. They betrayed the interests of our country. They do not deserve our respect. They deserve our ridicule and scorn. So we're going to ridicule them and scorn them at every opportunity. And I think that that's the marching orders that went out. And that is primarily being done through memes, but also mocking, trolling, and just living rent free in these people's heads. That has been Trump's thing. Is he loves to live rent free in the heads of his enemies, and so do I. By the way, there, uh, Jesus. Nobody lived rent free in the heads of their enemies more than Jesus. He drove the Pharisees and the scribes crazy with his approach to life and religion and philosophy. And I think that living rent free in the heads of your enemies is absolutely the best way to live. And I do, and I know that Trump does. And I think he has instructed his cabinet members, look, when these people criticize you, when they troll you, when they slander you, say false things about you, meme them until they cry, and then meme them crying. Uh, and that's what they're doing. They're like, they don't take these people seriously. They know that
They don't.
a lot of them are just like, you see these 21-year-old news anchors on camera trying to be really serious in their deep announcer voice. You're like, wow, you're such a caricature. Do you even understand how silly you sound? So I'm having fun. I'm not eating as much popcorn as I want to yet, but I'm saving that because we have Spygate indictments coming in the future. So I'm saving my popcorn for that. But right now I'm enjoying the memes.
Yes. Well, are there any memes that are giving us an indication of where we are in the timeline?
Yeah,
Because I saw
there are. I think we have passed from the educational phase of the operation. So Q broke down the larger operation, the exposure of institutional corruption, into 3 phases. First, we would have to do research, find open source information, and piece together little pieces of the puzzle to paint the picture of institutional corruption in the Vatican, in government, in higher education, in big pharma, in big ag, all these areas of society. There's corruption in all of them. And so Q has been dropping hints for us to go and do the research, find the information, put it together, and paint the picture of institutional corruption. All right. That phase I think has largely happened. It's in the past. It's over. The other phase that goes with that is, as we find the evidence of institutional corruption that the mainstream media has been hiding from everybody, our job is to go on social media and disseminate that information. Put it out there on YouTube, put it out there on X, on Facebook, wherever you can get a voice, a platform. Take the information you have and share it and wake people up to the realities of corruption, right? So there's phase 1 was us researching and finding the information. Phase 2 was spreading that information, getting it out there in the public sphere. Phase 3 is justice. So the third phase is the justice phase. That is where, now that people are aware of institutional corruption, now we get to indict and prosecute and send these people to prison. And that's the phase that we're in right now. When John Ratcliffe made those first 2 criminal referrals for James Comey and John Brennan to the DOJ to open up the investigation, I was like, oh, we're in the justice phase now. We're going to see indictments and arrests. That's where we're at right now. There are, according to John Solomon, at least 4 grand juries empaneled around the country that are looking into various criminal enterprises, everything from election fraud to the Spygate surveillance of President Trump and all the related junk, to the serial liars, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, lying to Congress, lying about everything,
Mhm.
The grand conspiracy, which probably will have no effective um, statute of limitations, because in a conspiracy case, every time someone takes an overt action to further the conspiracy, it resets the statute of limitations. So these people are going to be investigated, indicted, and arrested, and tried by a jury of their peers. And that's where we're at right now. And
So beautiful.
I'm glad we're finally there.
Me too. Now, Trump made a big deal about the Democrats handing him an unprecedented opportunity by shutting down the government.
Yes.
How much do you think he's getting done behind the scenes? And does Q give us any indication of something based on those words, unprecedented opportunity?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that ties into any Q posts related to
Okay.
that. But Trump and uh, Russ Vogt,
He called him Darth Vader last night.
he called him Darth Vader. What he meant was the Grim Reaper, but this is Darth
Okay.
Vader. I'm like, dude, you've seen the meme. It's not Darth Vader. It's the Grim Reaper. But whatever. That's just how Trump is.
Close enough.
Trump will sometimes misspeak. Russ Vogt has been one of my heroes for a long time. He was a star in Trump 1.0, even though he had really no one working with him to rein in the spending in in uh, in in government. But when he came into Trump 2.0, he pretty clearly telegraphed what he was going to do. He was going to use the presidential powers to cut spending at the executive branch level, because Congress can appropriate all the money they want for various government programs, but it is up to the executive to decide how much of that money gets spent, and some of that money may not be spent at all. And Russ Vogt, that was he told them, look, we're going to use, pocket rescissions and other levers, constitutional powers, to cut and reduce spending at the executive branch level. So let's say Congress approves, 15 billion to be spent by USAID, and Russ Vogt and Trump say, yeah, no, that's not happening. We're not going to spend that money. We know you appropriated it, but it's not going to be spent. We're just going to put it back into the general fund. And they can do that. And they have been doing that. And they've been getting hammered by stupid little small district court judges who think that they're God. And they're finding out from the Supreme Court, they're actually not God. They don't have that power. So I think Trump is like 25-0 at the Supreme Court right now. He's just winning on all of these cases. I mean, these judges, they have their marching orders. They've been told every time Trump does something to try to cut our ability to fund our deep state activities, you as a federal district judge need to go out there and put a temporary restraining order or um, and prevent him, block him from doing that. We know it's going to be overturned at the Supreme Court level, but we're trying to run out the clock on him. And fortunately, he has just been on fire at the Supreme Court level, because everything he's doing is perfectly constitutional, and they know
Yeah.
that. So Trump does have, with this government shutdown, he has an unprecedented opportunity, because all the other presidents before him never thought about, oh, hey, I could take this opportunity with the government shutdown to actually start cutting federal programs, wasteful spending that doesn't need to be there. We just get rid of it. And that's what
Yeah.
he's been doing. And if the government shutdown goes for another 3 or 4 weeks, they're just going to keep cutting more and more programs. So again, I'm enjoying it. I love it. Let's have
Me
more of
too.
it. I think the
It
shutdown
seems
should go for another 90 days. We'd be good with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like a beautiful opportunity to really hone in on what the essential functions of government are.
Right. Essential functions of government. Those are your key words right there. A
Mhm.
lot of what we're funding is non-essential functions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, Dave, thank you so much. It has been a joy. It's been a blast. I thank you for letting me take you all over the place with the topics today. I appreciate your forbearance on that. and
My
your
pleasure.
willingness to talk about all these different topics. Any final words?
Yeah, you should move your program to noon Central Time,
Yeah, I know
or maybe 1 o'clock.
makes it early for you.
Other than that, I'm good.
Well, thank you for your forbearance on that as well. And I would love to catch up with you in another couple weeks and see where we are in the timeline. Hopefully, we'll have some real arrests by then.
Hopefully, that'd be good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you. Thanks for all that you're doing. And just a reminder to the viewers, check out Dave's book. Tell me again the name. I know it's something marriage. Sorry. Wisdom for Marriage Made Simple. Yeah, everybody run out and get that book.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's a good book. And oh, you know what? For those of you who are interested in science fiction,
Oh, yeah.
Dave has his first science fiction novel, Arcturus, is also out on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. We published that a couple months ago, and people are really digging it. They like the
Awesome.
storytelling. So yeah, plenty of books for you to
Beautiful.
check out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Dave, and we will be talking to you soon. God bless you, sir. If you're looking to invest in physical precious metals or convert your 401k to a precious metals backed IRA, please consider making your investment with our trusted partner, Metal Stacks. Their prices regularly beat the big sites and they have no credit card fees or minimums. Shipping is free for orders over $500. Just visit metalstacks.com/dwalker or get there from our website, freedomstate.us. If you're interested in the IRA conversion, drop me a message at Danielle at freedomstate.us and I can get you connected with their white glove service. Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Ness's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Thanks for joining me today on For the Love of Freedom. It is an honor and a true privilege to get to spend some time with you. If you're looking for other episodes of this show, you can find them on all of the State of Freedom platforms. And a reminder that this show is live on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central. God bless.